How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to ReWrite Plus, where we're in the pits of despair. Lucia's really been cornered by this ghost, and we've kind of had to concede that there might be a whole lot to this. I mean, the glass shattering, possession, and like literally manifesting the ability that Lucia is terrified that she has. Part of me always wondered if like she was gonna actually have that power. But I genuinely thought it was going to be like, oh, she actually was a superpowered individual and that was her power. She just really hates it. And so she's like been tasked by Guardian to help save the world, but only in extreme need kind of a thing. Like she hates using her power, but she's willing to use it if it means saving the world kind of stuff. But this is almost implying that it's actually, she has the power kind of, but it's only because of the curse. And if that's the case, that's disturbing in itself, too. But then I also am just curious, how does she get involved with Guardian? Like, what's that all about? We'll have to see. Maybe it's like not direct. Maybe she has family in Guardian or something, or former family in Guardian. And so she's being cared for by Guardian, but she's not actually a participating member. But she understands their mission and their role and everything like that. So maybe that's all it is. I'm not too sure. But we're gonna have to figure things out. So now we've kind of given up, but part of us with Kotarou, of course, he's not gonna be able to fully put this away because he's not happy with how things have played out, and so we're just gonna see how this goes. So maybe if we can find out just a little more information, we can get to the heart of the matter, and maybe there's another resolution to this besides Lucia just forever being condemned as cursed, because that sucks. So yeah, let's just jump in and see what we can do. After school, I find myself visiting a certain unit of a condominium. I don't recognize the old couple living in it. Of course, they don't recognize me either. I ask them a few questions and they reply. And from that, the mystery unravels. It's Sunday. On my bike, I pedal through the forest path surrounded by the dense greenery of the trees. I stop and check my location on my phone's GPS. Man, these new phones sure are packed with features. I managed to make my way to my destination way easier than if I'd been using my old phone. This place looks exactly like where I have to go, but I'm still doubtful with all of these trees around. This place is a huge natural park protected by the environmental conservation laws of Kazamatsuri. Though the forest is dense, it's well taken care of and harmful bugs are kept away, so it's actually pretty pleasant to be in. Of course, even though it's a park, there are no slides or swings, there's no stalls or vending machines. Still, it's a natural park, so there are paths and esplanades? I'm guessing it's just like pseudo-paths paid for those who want to stroll around it or bike. There's also street lamps with water fountains, benches, as well as maps and emergency phones here and there. It's just interesting. So like, this is a very common concept in the United States. We have national parks everywhere. Some of it's just federal land, but a lot of it is genuinely like nature preserves where they have paths, they have like places you can go camping, but otherwise it's protected like from development and from disease and everything. But with Japan, I get the impression that because Japan has so much like limited space, just geographically, that national parks like that are probably few and far between. And the way it's describing this almost makes it feel like that's the case, like where it's assuming that an audience member might not understand the difference between this park and a park that you'd find in downtown or on the outskirts of a community. That like this is more of a nature preserve that has functionality for recreation as well. But again, like you can't go very far in the United States without finding something like this. Heck, even Central Park in New York, like they have this massive urban setting, and then they just took this giant square miles, I think it's like 3 square kilometers of just really naturalized space. So yeah, it's just interesting. But like I really approve of programs like this, especially when it comes to like preserving some more unique natural like places. Like again, I think I've said it before, but I grew up close enough to Yellowstone National Park. West Yellowstone was kind of the entrance we used to go through as a family. But I grew up close enough to Yellowstone National Park that we went there fairly regularly, and it's absolutely amazing. Good place to go. If you ever get a chance to, it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. Just because it's hard to find so much interesting stuff naturally occurring on the world in one place, and it's a beautiful location. It's just the right blend of nature and civilization, very fitting for Kazamatsuri. The place where I am, though, is pretty deep into the park, far removed from the paths normally taken by visitors. Even the paths that have this unmaintained look to them, typical places with very little foot traffic, almost looks desolate. From the moment I activated the GPS tracker until I biked all the way from my house here, it's taken about an hour. I'm finally close to my destination. There aren't any pins on the map to denote that my destination is a place of interest. This is just a spot in the vast natural park with a whole lot of nothing. But there's a particular spot in this park that used to be freely loaned to a social welfare organization. Interesting. So I'm guessing we're going to find the remains of the orphanage, right? Specifically, it was used for a civilian-owned orphanage. In other words, a place for children who had no other relatives to stay with. Baraki just happened to have her old voice recorder from when he did the interview back then, and I managed to borrow that from him. The voice recorder contained some pretty vivid tales from the alumni themselves, but more than that, it had a pretty big lead. Santa Ambrosia Peace Garden. That was the name of the orphanage that Kishida Ryogo came from. One of the students interviewed clearly mentioned that name. In other words, there's also an orphanage it's the orphanage where Asahi Haruka came from. Once I had the name, all that was left was looking it up online. Should be around here. I came across an old sign, withered from wind and rain. On it was written, "Private property, no trespassing." Its design is different from other signs that I've seen in the park. It feels like this isn't a sign from Kazamatsuri's local government, but from whatever organization was running the orphanage. Now I'm convinced this is the place. I pedal deeper in and find a chain-link fence entangled with vines. The path is blocked by a fence's gate, and there's a big padlock on the gate itself. However, the gate is also tangled with vines, and there aren't any signs it's been opened in months, maybe even years. Yes, this place is already closed down. I hope to find someone here to talk to so I could get some answers, but those slim hopes are fading away. Well, the ghost story itself mentioned the orphanage closed down. If this is the place, then there's no contradictions. Therefore, the orphanage's ruins should lie beyond this fence. I parked my bike under the shade of a tree and climbed over the fence. Man, the last time I climbed over a fence was when I was a kid or something. I'm interested to see, because remember, I can't help but wonder if this could be tied, because if there was some kind of weird corrupting force that was happening with Asahi Haruka, if that was all a thing, it kind of makes me wonder too, remember that weird pool of corruption that we find in the forest when we go exploring into the deep woods, which I don't even think has happened yet. Maybe it's not an event that happens maybe it's not a part of the chain of events on the Lucia path. I feel like we've gone so far down the route that we've kind of past when that would normally occur, when we'd go on our big escapade into the forest where the dragon appears and where the two factions kind of reveal themselves and split off. I wonder if we're just on a path where that doesn't happen. And if that's the case, if you remember during that, there's that weird, oozing, kind of corrupted, rainbow-looking stuff that just kills everything and mutates everything. What if that is what if it was originating from the orphanage rather than just because they talked about how, there used to be, some kind of, little township, and then it got, destroyed or whatever. What if it's this? What if it's in this spot? That would be really interesting. Past the fence lies a gloomy, neglected forest path. Even though natural parks are, natural, people do still keep them clean and tidy. But this place, there really hasn't been any sign of maintenance. It's abandoned as you can get. Just by hopping over a single fence, the forest atmosphere immediately takes a dive for the gloomy. There aren't any landmarks on the GPS map either. I have nothing else to rely on but my own 2 feet and my own eyesight for what I'm looking for. Steeling myself, I trudge along the forsaken trail. After some time following the path, I come across another fence. However, this one exudes a completely different aura from the earlier fence. Well, dang, that looks pretty ominous. Was this place really an orphanage? The second fence is a lot taller, and from the point where I have to look up to see the top. An intimidating coil of barbed wires wrapped around the top to keep people out. Yeah, that doesn't sound like an orphanage. That sounds like a prison. There's even a bunch of signs on the fence that make you think twice about whether this place really was an orphanage. Danger. Trespassing may seriously harm your health. Class 4 Special Hazard Industrial Waste Disposal Site. No entry. Yeah. You know what? It's kind of funny. Like, I wonder if I am, like, kind of on the mark there. If this is, like, the glance into, like, the source of that corruption. It's interesting because, like, I never really kind of gave it much thought beyond, like, the answers that we were given. But now that I think about it, we really weren't given a whole lot of information. We just kind of said, oh, there's corruption here. It's like, okay, but why? Where'd it come from? This is the first time in my life I've seen the skull and crossbones on a sign. And this place really an orphanage? I double check the coordinates on my GPS. I look it up on the internet again and make sure this really is the place. According to Kazamatsuri's database, the plot of land really was used for an orphanage. What is going on here? Is this one of those places I saw covered in news about the illegal industrial waste dumping? Sure, that's pretty newsworthy, but I didn't see how any of that ties with Asahi Haruka. Is this whole story about Santa something or other just fake? Was that all just a waste of time? Will I have to end my investigation completely in the dark? Dang, I spent over an hour biking here, and I can't just leave without seeing the truth for myself. The sign says it may seriously harm health, is pretty threatening, but at the same time, it reminds me of Asahi Haruka's warning not to get any closer to the truth. I don't believe that there's a waste disposal site beyond this fence, not that I have anything to back that up. Beyond this lies the ruins of an orphanage. There's some kind of secret within that hasn't seen the light of day, with these signs threatening anyone to stay away. I back away 2 or 3 steps, then dash and jump toward the fence, climbing over it. It's honestly kind of scary how high it is, but there's no backing down after coming this far. Man, if it really was a waste disposal site and I got sick, I'd look like such a freaking idiot. Those doubts quickly clear up the few moments after I scale the fence and continue down the path for a while. As for why, I see an old rotting tree with a simple swing covered in vines hanging off one of the branches. The swing itself isn't the fancy kind you'd see in a park. This one looks like a crude makeshift swing. And it's definitely something you don't see in a waste disposal site. Yeah, okay, maybe I really am on the right track here. This idea, like, maybe some kind of event happened. Maybe it was Asahi Haruka. Oh, I just realized that my screen is in the view. Let me back that up a bit. I'll adjust that later. But so maybe Asahi Haruka's involved somewhat, or it's Lucia, or both. It is interesting that they both seem to have corruptive power, whether Lucia is from herself or just from Asahi Haruka. Like this idea of like a touching corruption, the fact that they both seem to share it, maybe it came from the same source. And maybe whatever it was kind of began at this orphanage. This is the sort of thing you see in a place with children. So when the gloomy, desolate forest clears up and I come across a Western-style building that looks like a church, I'm in no way surprised. Alright, let's take a look at this thing. It's in terrible shape, but in days long past, it must have looked splendorous, surrounded by forest and filled with light filtering through the trees. But now, surrounded by the dead and rotting trees, the dilapidated building is more reminiscent of a haunted house. With warm sun shining upon it, though, it looks less creepy and more like single signs of a life gone by. There's an abandoned side and some toys, wheelbarrows overgrown with vines. On the wall of the playground, there's a mosaic depicting kids happily playing. Certainly, there are traces of kids having played here, from the doodles on the wall, some fixtures that have been broken and from too much roughhousing. There's no mistaking it. This is Santa Borgia's Peace Garden. Suddenly, I notice a worn-down signpost, the exact name written on it, as if to confirm my realization. So this is the place that Kishida Ryogo and Asahi Haruka lived in. This is the first time I've come here. Of course, I can't imagine exactly how the kids here lived. Still, I can easily imagine that they lived a pretty happy life. I mean, they had toys and stuff. Like, kids are kids. I think kids are a lot more resilient in ways that you wouldn't expect, but they also internalize things that you wouldn't, like in ways that you also can't predict. But I feel like, oddly, somehow, kids kind of have this, like, inborn optimism that lets them roll with the punches. I might be overstating things, but I wouldn't be surprised if the kids that were here ran past me, chasing each other and laughing all the while. If I listen carefully, I can hear the chorus of children singing as the caretaker plays the organ, perhaps even the sound of kids playing ball in the background. These ruins exude a sort of warmth of life. But that only serves to highlight the disparity between the ruins compared to the fence and sign from earlier. Just how is this place a waste disposal site? Now I'm convinced convinced that it's all just some kind of ruse. It's a warning, a fake one, to keep anyone from getting closer to these ruins. But it could still be toxic, like the Ryoju, whatever his name is. He literally died of some mysterious disease. Asahi Haruka has almost like a radioactive nature to her, right? Like this idea of like leaving like a handprint of corruption that can scar or even like flat out kill. That almost feels like someone who's just exuding radiation. So maybe there is a truth to it, and whether it was like an illegal dump that maybe was put underground that just leaked through and like caused a whole bunch of chaos and corruption or not, like I don't know. But like that could also be interesting because like what if it was that? What if there was illegal dumping and it was in a cave underneath the orphanage, and then the radiation like seals leaked and started leaking excessive radiation? It would poison and kill pretty much everyone in the school, and it would do it suddenly and almost invisibly. But it would be possible that if you timed it with an arrival of a brand new student, and then suddenly everyone starts getting sick and dying, they might believe it was her. And if for some reason before she passed away in the hospital, if she had been super irradiated, she could end up irradiating other people, like, you know, with her hand. Like that's not super scientific, because the problem with that type of radiation is you'd need to have radioactive material that's bonded to your cells, and the fact that it would be bonded, if you're that irradiated, you would literally, if you weren't already dead, you'd like your skin would be like falling off your bones. So then why would they want to keep people at a distance? And does that have anything to do with the story of Asahi Haruka? I try to head into the building, but it's locked as expected. Breaking the glass in a place like this seems so crass, I can't do it. As dilapidated as this place is, the ruins still tell me of the cheer of those times. While looking for a way to enter, I go through the story of Asahi Haruka once more. Ever since Asahi Haruka came, the kids of the orphanage got sick one by one. Eventually, almost everyone in the orphanage died from sickness, and the orphanage itself was closed. Was it some kind of small-scale epidemic? Or maybe there was actually some kind of hazardous waste here that caused everyone to get sick? The kids wouldn't know about it, so they'd blame it on Asahi Haruka, who just arrived recently? Yeah, okay, like, I'm definitely, like, the writers are at least accounting for the way I'm thinking. Kids dying one by one of sickness, illegal hazardous waste disposal. With those two key phrases, there's a pretty logical deduction we can make here. If that really is the truth, we can clear Asahi Haruka's name. All the entrances to the main building are locked down tight. I can't get inside. That leaves me with the church off to the side. I try opening the door, but it's no use. It's locked tight, too. I've come all the way here, only to leave empty-handed. And just as I think that, I spot one of the only place for me to break in. One of the dead trees had fallen, smashing through the church's stained glass windows. The part of the tree that fell doesn't look too old. Might have just fallen recently. I can see inside the church through the broken window. I don't know how long it's been since it was abandoned, but it hasn't lost an ounce of the solemnity within. Feeling some kind of force guiding me inside, I head into the church. Interesting. Ooh. Oh, wait. Wait. This looks familiar. Isn't this where we met up in Chihaya's route? Like, isn't this where we met the Guardian people? They used this asset, but is it supposed to be the same asset, or was it a different location? Oh, wait. And plus, they also had another thing, too. Like, wasn't there a whole thing about ruins buried underneath, like, the city somewhere? Could the ruins be not actual ruins, but maybe, like, the illegal dumping site that was then abandoned? Because I feel like that was tied to a church, too. So maybe that's all, like, maybe all these lines are connecting in that way. And, like, so, in the Chihaya route, this is literally where we came. It was where, Sakuya, like, nearly, he nearly got defeated, and then he had to stop Kotarou from completely turning beast mode. So this is Santa Ambrosia Peace Garden, the orphanage where Asahi Haruka was. And this is where everything began. The sunlight passing through the stained glass windows illuminates the church and creates an atmosphere of dignity and reverence. Though things here were lively, they also kept in order, or at least that's how it feels from being here. I'm here, Asahi Haruka. Finally found this place. My bad for coming here, I know. I said I gave up, but I just don't know when to give up, huh? The noise is probably the sound of one of the stained glass windows cracking. I can't help but grimace at how Asahi Haruka takes the efforts to reply. A cool breeze blows from somewhere, though she isn't showing herself. I can feel her very presence here confronting me. I don't think it's unsettling at all, though. That's because I've already arrived at the answer to the question that is Asahi Haruka. I notice a number of picture frames hanging off the pillars. I have no doubt those are group photos of all children taken yearly. There's one at each pillar arranged by year. With each year's passing, the kids who newly arrived slowly gain their smiles back. Eventually, some left, with kids taking their place. Oh, the stories those photos tell. Finally, the pictures end with this pillar. There are no other pictures after this one, which means this picture of the pillar is the last year of this place. I try to take the photo, but I hear multiple cracking sounds, with shards of glass falling to the floor. Well, I suppose anyone would be embarrassed to have their childhood photo seen by someone else. The final picture is dated 8 years ago. In other words, a year before Kishida Ryogo died. It's pretty easy to surmise that after surviving whatever tragedy happened here, Kishida Ryogo went to hospital for about a year, then back to school shortly afterwards. In the photo, there are somewhat 10 to 20 kids. There are kids with smiles, ones that are less expressive, all sorts of faces. At the bottom of the frame, the names of each kid are listed in order. Kishida Ryogo. This chubby little guy is him, huh? The kid named Kishida Ryogo in the picture looks like the kind of guy who'd eat all the girls' leftovers. He's pretty pudgy looking. And he's grinning from ear to ear, tells me he led a pretty good life here, without any worries. And then, Asahi Haruka, spring flowers in the morning sun. Once again, another crack forms in the stained glass. There's no mistaking it, this glum-looking girl with the old-fashioned bowl cut is Asahi Haruka herself. There you are. Found you, Asahi Haruka. That very moment, the light bulb suspended from the high ceiling all bursts at once. The shards fall to the floor like a passing shower. Look at the names. Like, let's see if there's anybody else here we recognize. Like, Lucia? Is she here? Some of the shards fall on me. The mark on the arm I used to shield myself is still visibly there. So does this curse really exist, or is it all just some misunderstanding? I wouldn't know at this point. I stopped my investigation yesterday, just like I promised. Came here not to ascertain the truth behind the ghost story of Asahi Haruka. I didn't come here to find out whether or not the curse is real, or to surrender to you. I came here because there's something I need to tell you. Perhaps I didn't have to come here just to tell her. But it just had to be here. Because this is the only place where my message will reach her. To start, why don't you show yourself, Asahi Haruka? My proposal reverberates around the high ceiling, but to no avail. Well, I already know that she can hear me, but she's just ignoring me. Oh, right, you don't go by Asahi Haruka anymore now, do you? Oh, is it? Yeah! Oh, fetch! I think I mentioned that as a possibility before. I kind of put it aside. But that makes sense. Konohana Lucia. So it's just her. Like, it's always just been her. Class rep, you're Asahi Haruka herself. I heard the crunch of gravel. Someone approaches me from a diagonal. From behind the shadows of one of the church's pillars, she appears. Well, fetch me! That makes sense. There's a lot of sense to be made there. Especially because, like, the visible sightings of Asahi Haruka were mostly just by her, so it's more of a figment of her fractured reality. But then, what about all the glass breaking and stuff? Like, what's that all about? Alright, Lucia, you have an actual explanation for us? Did she tail me the whole day, or has she been lying in wait here, knowing that I would come? In any case, I was convinced that if I came here, we would meet. I wanted to talk with you here, class rep. I thought that you would sincerely listen to me if we did.
私が朝日はるか本人だと？どうして？
I figured it out from all the phone calls.
岸田龍吾を除いて4年1組 OB に朝日はるかと面識のある人間はいないはず。
You're right, there isn't, but I still managed to figure it out from all those calls.
どうして？
There was one guy who couldn't call because he moved out.
その男子に連絡がつかないと、どうして私が朝日はるかだということになるのか。
It almost feels like she's like trying to figure out like, how do I plug the hole, like so no one else figures this out. She's right, that alone isn't enough to pinpoint her. Actually, the number isn't what's important here. The key here is the address written alongside the number.
意味がわからない。住所が何だと？
What I mean to say is, his address written here is the old one.
言われるまでもない。
Everyone involved ended up scared of the curse. Man, hats off for the curse girl for putting in so much effort. But there was a fatal flaw in your plan.
ボロとは？
An old couple who have nothing at all to do with this lives in the condo where the guys used to be. Despite that, all the glass in their home shattered. After that, I asked Yoshino about the guy's number and called him up at his new place. Oh, so somebody moved, but the number, like the information hadn't changed. And so she went about shattering glass at all the people who could potentially like spill the beans or like connect some dots as a way to scare them. But she went and targeted people who were completely unrelated because she didn't realize that the address had changed. Dang, that's interesting. That really points at, like, that colors a really interesting picture here that she was like, that makes, okay, so now I'm kind of falling back into this whole idea, like, she does have powers. She always has. And she's using the powers to try and hide her backstory. Interesting. Interesting. It was that, then I found out that he didn't experience any glass shattering. This leads to just one conclusion. The glass shattering incidents to scare the alumni of the Class 4-1 into silence all occurred based on the old names and addresses listed in the class directory. Had this been truly the work of a ghost or supernatural, this wouldn't have happened. Therefore, it must have been the work of a person, someone who relied on the out-of-date class directory with all the old addresses. I don't know what kind of tricks you used to make the glass break. Maybe you had some sort of device to do it, or maybe it really is some so-called curse like you say it is. But whoever's behind it is a human, and that human is you, class rep, Konohana Lucia. Now that I'm convinced class rep is Asahi Haruka herself, that absolutely everything makes sense. It actually does. Like, honestly, I was throwing about a whole bunch of different potentials, but putting aside like the literal ability to wither and kill stuff, everything else actually lines up really well. Up until 7 years ago, you lived in this orphanage as Asahi Haruka. But for some reason, the place was closed down. After that, you changed your name and began living at Kazamatsuri. After that, you went to 7th Elementary like Yoshino and the others, and you also ended up in the same school district as them for the middle school. The name Asahi Haruka must have been tied to memories from her here that were so painful you felt you had to change your name. 4 years ago, there was a reunion of the class and Kishida Ryogo spent a couple weeks with. You discovered that there was a newspaper club member who was looking to interview people about the story of Asahi Haruka. So you went to make a mess of things.
それで?
The cursed girl, Asahi Haruka, became a Kishida Ryogo's death because of Kishida Ryogo's death and a mysterious illness, would become an urban legend. If the story started gaining traction, there's a chance that it would end up exposing something about you. Instead, you decided to turn the story against them, cause these paranormal incidents. That way, they'd plant the fear of the story in them and keep them quiet. Just seeing how scared Yoshino and the other graduates and Baraki were, I can imagine how effectively her strategy was. Okay, now, though, as I'm thinking about it, I'm having one issue here. The fear she expressed. The way she felt about everything that was going on. And, like, remember, like, the printer that was doing the misprinting? Like, she seemed genuinely upset. Now, she might have just been genuinely upset as a way to kind of placate Kotarou, but it also felt too real. Like, maybe she is genuinely afraid of her own past self. Like, Asahi Haruka might not be a different person, but a part of her that she's so detached from that is kind of like a separate personality, and thus it genuinely freaks her out. But then, why did the printer print off that sheet? Did she see what he was printing and then set up the printer to do the creepy printing and then set all that up? Because, like, that's the one flaw to all this, is it feels like a lot of the setup that made this all feel like really creepy came from her and her what felt like genuine reactions. Maybe she's just a really, really good actor and can play her emotions for the right moments and kind of act it up, but it also felt so legitimate. I'm not sure if that's the intention that the writers were going for, so I'm not really sure how I feel about that, because I'm not sure if there's like a genuine intent there, or if it was just a red herring, like genuinely a red herring from the get-go. the logic being that Lucia did it herself to be a red herring, but like, I feel like it was like taken so far. Like she even blew up the like glass in her own house, but I guess that's like to give herself the alibi. Okay, maybe, but maybe if that's the case, then Lucia is like a grade A like movie star material. With the way things were going, you expected the story to eventually be forgotten. Except, 4 years later, another guy shows up sniffing around, looking into the story. Namely, Tennouji Kotarou. Maybe you just have the worst luck, or the best. When I want to make a photocopy of 4.1's directory, you just happen to be there with me. Once you saw what I wanted to make a copy of, you realized that you had to recreate those supernatural phenomena again.
反論する。印刷室でお前は私が背を向けている間にとっととコピーを済まして退出したはずだ。私はお前が何をコピーしたのか。
You're right, or rather, you would do right. That's why it took so long before I started to suspect you. The other day, I went to the printing room again and asked Miss Nishikyojo to tell me about the photocopier's features. There wasn't any trick to it, really. Just a feature of the machine.
仕様
The photocopier in the printing room is a business-use digital copier. Unlike the machines at the convenience stores, it keeps the digital data from the last thing it copied until the next thing gets photocopied. That means that once it scanned the original, you could print as many copies of that as you wanted, even if the original was taken somewhere. Oh. That is interesting. Is he trying to say that she just printed another one out of curiosity? You can be quite the little rascal sometimes. You must have been curious about what I photocopied before you made a copy of whatever you needed. You pressed the reprint button and had to make another copy of my scan. She must have felt a tinge of mischief, like doing a little eavesdropping when she pushed the reprint button. I bet she thought it would be a copy of a silly, tasteless drawing, something she'd expect from the likes of me. Instead, except what she saw instead was a 4.1 class directory, which is like, out of like a horror, like that, like they'd be like the worst thing. That meant ever since, even after slicing everyone's 4 years ago, the story that she managed to bury in the darkness would again come to light. Once you saw it, you figured out what I was up to. That's why you immediately started causing those strange occurrences to happen. The first was the creepy message. Do not wake me up. The photocopy came from a machine that wasn't even being operated.
西九条先生が見事な推理をしたはずだ。あのコピーは機械の不調とリサイクル紙のずさんな扱いが重なって起こった偶然に過ぎないと。
Right. A little bit of insight we have. Nishikijo, we know that she's with Guardian. And likely they're the ones that helped Lucia come up with her cover story and even gave her a new name, her new life. Because when she had her manifestation of her powers, right, they inducted her, they brought her in, and in a way kind of helped provide for her and adopt her. But, you know, they want to make sure that this backstory stays airtight too. So naturally, she would probably come up with some kind of crazy story or like explanation to kind of give Lucia that extra validity that she needs to help deflect, you know, these questions. No, that's not as complicated as that. It's really pretty simple. You wrote the threatening letter, photocopied it, handed it to me while pretending not to know anything. If Clash Rep herself is the one trying to intimidate me, then she wouldn't need a fancy tricks or curses or whatnot. Heck, Miss Nishikyojo's deduction just ended up being a red herring instead. Indeed, had I not been swayed even the slightest bit of doubt whether the curse actually existed, I would have already had enough reason to doubt her at this point. And then, there's my phone. That night I tried to make a calls right away, but it was broken.
災難だな。
Except you were the one who broke it.
言いがかりだな。証拠は
None, but if you can make glass crack without even touching it, I'm pretty sure breaking my phone is totally within the realm of possibility. That's fair point! Just break something inside the phone. Not to mention, you've got plenty of motive.
聞こう。
There are about 20 graduates from the class 401. You have to go to each and every one of their houses to scare them into silence again. You needed to buy time because one night wouldn't be enough. Class rep went through the directory, going to each house listed, caused the paranormal occurrences. She went to 20 different houses and caused an elaborate commotion. It's almost admirable how much effort she put into this. But then you made a mistake. Someone on that list had already moved someplace else. You caused the same paranormal occurrence to happen to a completely unrelated old couple.
なるほど。確かに。本当にオカルトや呪いだったら、人違いはありえんな。
If you really are Asahi Haruka herself, then I can begin to see your motivation behind everything that you said and done, both to as yourself and when you pretended to be possessed by Asahi Haruka. I mean, yeah. In hindsight, again, like that possession was a little suspicious. But again, like think about it. Class A acting. It really didn't feel like class rep in the slightest. It was to stop the investigation, sure, but also I saw your true feelings.
本音
Yeah, I wanted to respond to those feelings properly. That's why I wanted to talk here. Unless we're here, you wouldn't admit to being Asahi Haruka. We're not in school anymore, so I won't call you class rep. Should I call you Haruka then?
いや。ルチアで。はるかは忘れたいなだ。
So class rep admits it. She admits that she's Asahi Haruka herself. Just what happened here?
岸田龍吾が伝えたままだ。草木が枯れ果て、生き物は死に、人も同じ運命をたどった。
So you're a vampire, like the story says?
吸血鬼などではない。しかし、人間でもない。
I'm guessing that's a bit of an overstatement. I think she's human. She's just not typical human. She's like mutant or something. What?
生まれた時は普通の人間だった。しかし、そうでないものに生まれ変わったのだ。それはひどく醜く、汚れた存在だった。
I don't know about that. Like, again, it kind of, like, bringing up something like X-Men actually kind of makes sense here, because again, that is a lot of the feeling, a lot of the, the narrative of X-Men is this kind of idea that where most of the heroes in Marvel are people who either, like, attain their powers through, like, might, magic, or, you know, like, accident. Like, almost all of them are like, oh, well, I'm gonna immediately become a hero, you know? Or a villain. The X-Men are different because, like, while many of them do take the heroic route, they cover this idea of, like, when people have these mutations, they feel ostracized. They feel like they're a danger to people around them. They feel like they can't be around other people. They don't feel like people. And a lot of them are just looking for a community, for a place where they aren't going to hurt others, where they can live and not feel fear of, like, harming themselves or others around them. And it tackles powers that are a lot less, like, fundamental of, like, oh, this is just a superpower. Like, I've got super strength, or I've got super brains, or I've got Superman's powers, or whatever. It's like, no, it's like Rogue. Like, she can steal powers from other people, but she also technically steals life force and can, like, kill them by touching them. Like, that's kind of more along the lines of what Lucia is expressing here, is this idea of, like, I became terrible, ugly, unclean. It's very similar to some of, like the narratives that are talked about in X-Men. And, like, Xavier, like, wants to provide a home for people and help them see, like, they have value as people, not just as mutants. And he wants them to feel safe and, like, somewhere where they can be themselves. And then Megiddo is talking about saying, like, no, your evolution. You should embrace your powers and your difference. We don't want to be human. We want to be better. And, like, that whole philosophy is really interesting. So, like, Lucia would very much fall into the Xavier, like, branch, where she doesn't want to embrace her powers. She sees them as like a burden, a strain, a danger. Yeah, I think it's a really good analogy. Like, she fits into that monogram really well. And what would that be?
未来の人類。
Again, like I said, X-Men. What? Human of the future? What? What she just said makes absolutely no sense to me, until my head in doubt. In response to my reaction, she looks slightly dejected, as if she's being mocked. My ignorance has hurt her, it seems, but how can I possibly know what she's talking about?
話したところでお前にはわからん。だが、理解はしているはずだ。私には人間にはない力があること。
I mean, at this point, we kind of know, but it more was like a suspicion. The power to crack glass without so much as touching it. A normal person definitely wouldn't be able to do that. And causing plants to wither, leaving marks on people she touches, and possibly even killing them? No one can do that either. Just, what is Konohana Lucia?
質問に答えた。今度は天王寺が答える番だ。私の本音と言ったな。
Yeah, your true feelings of Konohana Lucia, that you despise your powers. You shun them. You call yourself a cursed girl with those powers and wallow in self-pity over how no one will ever accept you. You always have those gloves on because you leave those marks. To make sure what happened to the orphanage doesn't repeat itself, you put on the act of a clean freak and spur in contact with others. And all of that makes you sad. Not sad as in like you're a sad individual, more of like makes you heartbroken, makes you isolated. That's the worst part about it, really. We're social creatures. Despite even like introverts. Like I'm definitely an introvert, but I'm certainly not the most introverted. But even the most introverted, I feel like there's a level where you'd be like, if you were super isolated, you'd actually find that you would miss people. Just because you don't need a ton of contact with other people doesn't mean you don't want zero. Lucia lives in a world where she's constantly talking to people, but never gets to be herself. Where she's constantly interacting, but always feels a barrier. Where she never feels trusted or even liked. And while she tries to accept that, you can't. You can't actually accept that. That's horrible. And she does everything she can to just be supportive and helpful and diligent and just like an example of goodness and rightness. But then she gets called out, she gets bullied, she gets accused, she gets ostracized. And she can't even refute it. Because in her heart, she feels like she deserves it. Which isn't true, but she feels it. And the thing is that like, it's hyperbolic, but it's a very real experience for many normal people. You don't have to have superpowers to feel like an alien. You don't have to be inhuman to feel like you don't deserve being treated as one. For whatever reason. Mistakes you made in the past, perceived mistakes that you've made, or just feeling ostracized or like an outsider. Like these are very real feelings. I think a lot of us feel them in little bits and pieces, but there are some of us that feel it in such extreme forms that we actually would be a modern Lucia or a current Lucia. Like even if we don't have the power to literally corrupt and destroy everything around us, doesn't mean we don't feel like we do. And it sucks because sometimes people inadvertently enforce that through mean-mindedness, bullying, or even just toxic family relationships. Dang. For the rest of her life, she can't touch anyone. She has to live all alone in solitude. Anything we touch withers and dies. Just who is this entire world going to accept us? No one. No one will accept us. Not a single person. That day at my place, you were crying when you told me that. Konohana Lucia, those are your true feelings. Lucia bites her lip and casts her head down. She said those things when she was overcome with emotion. She didn't expect me to take what she said to heart. You might have some special circumstances that force you to be conscious of touching others. The moment you admit that, I suppose you could say that the whole story of Asahi Haruka, of the cursed girl, exists.
そうだ。私は呪われている。
Cursed to never be touched?
そうだ。普段は抑えることもできる。普通の人間に紛れて生活もできる。
So, it's not constant. So, technically she could maybe hold someone's hand, touch them. I mean, that might also explain why we were able to carry her and help her change her clothes when she was so out of sorts, but she acts like she can't. She knows she can control herself, but she acts and behaves as if she's completely incapable of it. Is that just because she's paranoid that she might one bad slip, one wrong move, one lapse of judgment or lapse of concentration, and then boom, she's killing people? I guess that would make sense. I'd be terrified too.
だが、何かの間違いやきっかけ、あるいは体調で、それはすべて破綻する。
Because of my
あの
health.
日もそうだった。
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? What if she got a cold and she sneezed? And for that infinitesimal moment where your body naturally loses control of a lot of its sympathetic systems, your heart stops beating, a lot of your system shuts down for a sneeze. What if she sneezed and in that moment she sneezed out a wave of death and just everyone in the room dies? Could you imagine if that happened one time, what that would do to you? Oh, fetch me. She'd lived a perfectly normal life until then. She didn't even realize that she was a cursed existence. Sure, the flowers she touched withered and the goldfish died. The boys had mocked her for it, but she believed that she was just a victim of unlucky circumstance. She never imagined she was truly cursed. But one day, she broke into a high fever. Her beloved caretaker had looked after her so earnestly.
そして私の手に触れ、死んだ。
Yeah, okay, so she literally, she got sick, lost control, That's horrifying, because you could get sick without realizing it too.
私の手が殺したんだ。
Dang. You're wrong. Don't say you killed her.
すべてが滅び、元凶は私であることが知らされた。そして理解した。私はいてはならぬ、呪われた存在なのだと。
I guess the question though is like, how? How do you exist? Like, where did this come from? I was told that people are born to fulfill some kind of duty, some kind of role in their lives. No matter how powerless I am, the time would come that I would be able to be of use to the world someday. That's what I believed.
しかし私は世のために何の役にも立てない存在となり果てていた。
Okay, so she's part of Guardian, but she feels like she's useless. Is it because she's terrified to even make, like, to practice or find practical limitations of her powers? And, like, they're willing to accept that because you can't force her to fight for the world, but, like, at the same time, like, they really want her to utilize herself?
私の存在はただそれだけで人に害をなす。ただ私がいるだけで誰かを危険にさらす。私がいることが誰の救いにもならない。今すぐ死んでこの世から立ち去ることだけだった。
Hell no! Did anyone from class die? Look at me, I'm alive and kicking. Me, Kotarou Haya, everyone else, we're all your friends. If you're gone, what'll happen to the rest of the class? No one's gonna follow the rules. It'll be turned into a no man's land. Great, sure. Appeal to the fact that she's the class representative to be her reason for life.
それは私が害をなさるように日々懸命な努力を重ねているに過ぎない。この手袋などそのうちのささやかな一つに過ぎん。気休め程度でしかない。
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was wondering too. Is like the gloves can't actually save people. Like she can kill things through the gloves. The gloves aren't actually a barrier. They help her mentally compartmentalize and help her mentally feel like she has a chance. But like she's like, if it really came to it, I know the gloves won't save anyone. That's something. If I become negligent for even the slightest of moments, my nightmare will become a reality all over again. My close friends, my teachers, never again do I wish to kill them with my own two hands. That's me.
お前は私に近づきすぎなんだ。天王寺小太郎。私に近づくな。触れようとするな。お前も全身に紫のあざを浮き上がらせて、晴らせながら海をまき散らして死にたいのか。せめて私に優しくしてくれるお前を。絶対にそうしないように。私がどれだけ悩んでいるか考えたことはあるのか。
I see. So that explains why you were so grossed out when I licked your plate.
ああ、それは違うだ。女子の正常な反応だ。
Yes! I love that. The you could hear the record scratch there. And he's like, oh, okay, so you didn't want to kill me, which is why you were mad I licked your plate. She's like, no, that's a normal person reaction. Right, back to the horror, right? This is not fun and games. This is supposed to be serious time. No one can touch me. But surely, the time will come when even I can be of some use to the world. Until that day comes, I'll have to live in solitude. But when? Or perhaps it's just as they told me when they gave me the curse. 1,000 years in the future? Wait. Who told you when they gave you the curse? Who gave you the curse? Oh, that's interesting. Someone gave it to her. So she was like, maybe like some kind of weird, like, from Fallout, the FEV virus, the forced evolutionary virus. Like maybe that's what Guardian is doing. Like they don't cultivate and find people with superpowers. They activate people and turn them into super beings. But they can't control what the powers are. That's actually isn't there a timeline in X-Men that does that too? The idea of like being able to inject people into making them like manifesting like their latent mutant abilities. But like you don't get to pick what your powers are. They just are. Oh.
これまでも一人だった。これからも一人だ。いつまで一人で私は1000年の後をもたった一人で生きていく定めを与えられたのだ。
おい。
そんな私がどうして呪われていないなんて言えるんだ。
So is she now immortal too? Like is that part of the things? Like is she like going to live for 1,000 years?
触れるものに死をもたらす私とは誰も。
Oh. What if it's actually not just that? What if she lives 1,000 years, and whether she's told this or not, but what if it's that she sucks the life force out of people? And so as she's killed things, she's added to her own lifespan. Oh, that'd be horrifying. If that were in the hands of somebody who wasn't, like, practically minded, who wasn't, like, you know, like, so good of a soul, and they could literally live forever as long as they kept killing. Like, could you imagine? That'd be insane. I thrust out my hand to the side. It's not just a gesture to stifle her voice. With my sleeve rolled up, I show her the hand-marked shape still on my left arm. The scar has been throbbing in pain since earlier. Up until yesterday, the pain was low enough that I could still ignore it. Since arriving here, though, it started to hurt more and more, as if pulsing in pain. Now that I look at it, the purple color has grown even more vivid, as if the ink was just spilled onto my arm.
この敷地には私の毒が未だに濃く残っている。入れば健康を損なうと警告があっただろうに。
Lucia's poison. The poison generated by her that causes the trees to wither and brings to perish. Even after so many years have passed, it still fills this place? I've been feeling rather feverish since coming here. I thought it just caught a cold. Adding to that, the mark on my arm has been getting worse. It's getting more and more painful.
お前を病院へ収容する。当時とは違う。今は対応が早ければ治療は容易だ。
So they've learned enough that they can save people from her ability. So this is poison.
そうだ。私の呪いであり、私の毒だ。
I noticed my fingers. At some point, even my fingertips have turned purple. I was touching all sorts of things since I came here. Is that all it takes to become blighted with the mark?
恐ろしいものだな。これだけの年月を経ても、未だにそれだけの毒性があるというのか。
It really is almost like a radiation, but it looks like it is a contact thing. Oh, that's actually scary though, because like a radiation, it lingers for a long time. That's terrifying. If it's still this poisonous after so many years have passed, then just how much worse was the incident when it happened? I don't think I could even imagine.
そのあざについては謝る。
She did it to try and really scare him off. It might actually kill him. And then the other thing too is like, what about, so if this place can still be so saturated that by being here you can get poisoned, what about the kids who got infected? Could they like snowball it to others? It doesn't seem like it. So like once your body absorbs it, it seems it stops there.
しかし、そこまでしなかったら、お前は調査をやめてくれないと思って。
I'm sorry.
え?
I'm sorry for this mark. Lucy apologized for leaving the mark that won't fade. However, I apologize for the same thing. Unsure what I meant by that, she simply stands still, dumbfounded. It makes sense. I just apologized for hurting her with the mark that she left. You left the mark on me as a kind of warning, but it's not just that, is it? You must have hoped that maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't leave a mark on me. Hence, that day when my arm allowed itself to be marked, she fell into a despair once more. She was hoping that one person would be able to be safe. It meant that she's still cursed with the poison that eats away at everything. That's why I just can't forgive. I can't forgive my own body for being so weak. If only I was strong enough not to lose your poison. If only I was strong enough for you not to leave a mark on me. Then that day you wouldn't have cried as much as you did. Oh, fetch! Out of habit, I made the choices where I didn't push his body. Am I gonna get a bad ending because I didn't push his body hard enough and thus he wasn't able to resist the poison? Does that lead to a different outcome here? Oh, that'd be kind of cool. That's why I wanted to apologize to you.
それは、天王寺が悪いわけじゃなくて。
I don't know. Let's see. Let's push it. Quiet. My sudden outburst caused Lucia to choke on her words. I need absolute silence and concentration, if only for this one moment. If the cause of this mark lies in her poison, it must be eating away at me somewhere inside my body. I will overcome it. I'm aware of how languid my entire body feels, just like she said, but the entire church is filled with the poisonous miasma. However, Lucy herself is unfazed. Her body must have some kind of power that nullifies the poison. I will gain that same power. You're just gonna manifest it, huh? I find the poison flowing in your veins, perceive the poison that's caused the mark, and conquer it. I will find the cause of this mark that hurt Lucia, and burn it to nothing. My brain runs in overdrive, harder, faster than ever before. My power is something only I've ever used for silly pranks or when I wanted to enjoy myself, never for a proper purpose. And now, this very moment, I understand. This power of mine is one to be used for others, to save others.
And I like it because it's like, again, it pushes this idea that the power always has been about like adapting, but it's a manifestation of Gaia's power. And so like, if from all life and all death circulates through it, it makes sense you'd be able to do this. And now I will use my very power to save someone for the very first time. Though that's not what I'm hoping for. It still hasn't managed to subdue the poison running through my body. No, it's putting up a fight, but the poison is just too strong. It's strong enough I can turn my fingers purple even after nearly a decade of decay. Oh crap. Been so many years since it happened. For now, for how long will the events of the past treat her and tear her heart to pieces? With anger fill my eyes, I glare at the purple staining my arm. I refuse to tolerate the existence of this mark that continues to torment her. Poison? Curse? To hell with that! This time I'm gonna flow through with my promise. I'm gonna rip the curse of Asahi Haruka to pieces. Something's burning hot flows through my veins. This feeling is reminiscent of when I slammed the accelerator within my body. I've done it so many times up till now. And yet this is the first time that my body is burned this hot from within. I had a feeling this is what it would feel like if I really floored it. I knew it would set my entire body ablaze from within like never before, as if my whole self was being rewritten. Which it is! I was afraid of whether I would still be who I am if I floored the accelerator, so I've never gone all out.
何をするつもりかわからんが、もうやめろ、やめてくれ。
Not gonna happen. If that's your curse, then this power of mine is something that will accept your curse. Rewrite yourself, overcome the poison, burn away the mark that torments her so. This silent throbbing feels like I just shook from the it just shook from the very church. The flame within me burns away everything, the heat clouds of my vision.
やめろ、天王寺小太郎。何もかもやめて、早くここから逃げ出せ。
And leave you here alone? Sorry, but no can do. I won't ever let you say that no one in this world will accept you. I'll be the one and only person in this whole world who will accept you.
もうやめて。もう二度と私に誰も殺させないで。
Oh my gosh, we're gambling a lot here. If we actually fail, if we die, we ruin her life again. Yeah, of course. I won't ever let you think that again. Burn away the curse that torments her. There shouldn't be any disturbance in the air, but it suddenly feels like I'm in the middle of a burning hot maelstrom. Then the heat that has been burning my entire body suddenly dissipates, blowing away from me like a whirlwind. Ah, we went up like 2 or 3 stages there. All that's left behind is an icy silence. Lucia's eyes are shut tight, her head in her hands. She probably doesn't want to see me collapse on the floor, foaming at the mouth. Well, sorry to disappoint you. Open your eyes. Fetch me. It'd be so crazy. I've accepted your world, Konohana Lucia. Lucia staggers from astonishment. Meanwhile, I haven't budged an inch with my arm still extended. Except, there is one difference. That one difference is the proof. The proof that I've now broken the curse that doomed her life to live 1,000 years in solitude.
技が消えた。
Yeah. Yep, because Kotarou, he looks at reality, just says, nope, I'm gonna just make it mine.
どうして？
All I can really say is, this is my power.
お前は何者なんだ？
I'm an idiot. An idiot with the powers of a god. Not really. Tennouji Kotarou, high school, 2nd year, Konohana Lucia's friend. And friends don't just leave each other behind.
本当になんともないのか？あざは確かに消えたが、お前、本当に体はなんともないのか？熱は、めまいは、
I grab her arm of my own volition. I need to show her in the most direct way possible that her curse of being unable to touch anyone is gone, at least for me anyway.
話せ！天王寺が死んでしまう。
That's the beautiful thing. We won't. Your curse and your poison aren't going to work on me anymore. It's a wide world out there. Just goes to show there's people like me too.
私の毒に耐えられるというの。
I mean, I don't know if we should let you just go all out trying to kill me, but at least this much. See? You'd be surprised the kind of people out there. Besides, you get along just fine with Suzaru too, don't you? You've never been alone. Yeah, that's what I've always wanted to tell her. Living alone without the touch of anyone? Don't say something so sad. See, there is someone who can accept you. Me.
この手を離 せ。たまたまあざが消えただけかもしれない。嫌だ。もう誰も殺したくない。
She's accepted the mark is gone, but she's refusing to believe that the poison won't still affect me. Dang, what do I have to do to show her the poison doesn't affect me anymore? What do I have to do to prove to her that she doesn't have to be afraid of poisoning me with her touch? I have a feeling I know where this is going all of a sudden. And then, my gosh, if he does what I think he's about to do, she cries so that she would never be able to touch another person again. But I want to show her that it doesn't apply, at least to me. The moment I realize that, my body moves faster than I can think of an answer. Are you really gonna just go for it, man? Are you just gonna sprint right for it? Oh, okay, it's a hug. It's a hug, okay. I didn't think it was gonna be a hug. But a hug is much better. This is super cute. Man, part of me wants to make this the thumbnail, but the other part of me also, like, I feel like that's almost too much of a spoiler. I think I might have to do a different thumbnail, even if it's not as good as this. But this is just too precious. My gosh. Gosh, she's tiny. All the girls are way too twig-like. Like, they're so skinny. But, my goodness. It'll be fine now. I won't die. Even if you touch me, I won't die. I can accept you. I can accept that sad, tragic power of yours. But don't. Don't ever say that's anything so sad. Don't ever say something sad like living the rest of your life alone. That's what I most wanted to tell her. Also hearing the tragic past, all the more so. She's cursed. She'll live the rest of her life sad and alone. Sounds like she's throwing her future away. The thing about a future is if you believe it'll change, then something will change. Wouldn't it be sad if you talked like everything's already set in stone and rejected every other option? It's not like no one can accept you. It's that you refuse to accept the world. So, oh. That's their fear. Your fear did that. I mean, we see this in other people too. And people or animals. Like, ever seen videos of animals that were abused and then get rescued? And it takes months for people to kind of like help the animals understand that they're not about to be struck, that they're not about to be tortured. Like, you live with fear so much, it starts to color the way you do everything, even things that you think aren't fear-based. It becomes this kind of omnipresent, like, smog that just takes over everything. Like, she's fighting with everyone else, but that's because, like, she's terrified of what could happen if she gets too close. So she sabotages the relationships around her. Yeah, you were. At the start, anyway. But Chihaya understood you. Though they didn't always see eye to eye, Chihaya understood how to interact with Lucia. Sure, they haven't touched, but the two of them have managed to become friends, haven't they? Despite that, you fought with her again. Seriously? Aren't you the one who's accepting who isn't accepting the world here? Those gloves of yours aren't covering your hands, they're covering your heart. No. It's foolish for you to cling to it like this, but you're not a fool. Yeah, you are, so just relax. I can touch you just fine, and as you can see, I already know your backstory. I swear, I'll be your best ally. But please, don't ever say anything as sad as living alone for the rest of your life. Aww. Aww. I'm not dying. Not a chance. Yeah, always. I'll be there for you for life. You can count on me to always be there for you. Lucy has no other choice but to admit it. Even if Tennouji Kotarou is merely running his mouth, this is not just some moment of bravado. He truly has something ability to withstand her poison. On his skin is a blush mark where there wasn't moments ago. Is a bluish mark where there was. Oh, on his skin is a bluish mark where there wasn't one moments ago. That is the curse mark that has forever chained her to 1,000 years of solitude. And yet, it disappears before her very eyes. To sum it up in a single word. Kinda. What the heck are you talking about? What's wrong with a miracle here and there?
どうして
Come on, we're in a church. God's right here, yeah? It's a girl crying about living alone the rest of her life. Nothing weird about the magnanimous Lord Almighty granting a miracle or two in his very house of worship, right? It's a great excuse, man.
なら神様に誓え。もう一度
I swear. I, Tennouji Kotarou, will be with you forever. So come on, you promise to. Don't ever say you'll be alone for life, got it?
誓うとも
It's really funny because like I really don't think either of them actually sees it, but like it really just sounds like they've just like promised to get married here, like right here, right now.
素敵ね
Uh-oh.
二人で神様の前で誓い合うなんて
Uh-oh.
ウケるわ
I don't like that! Suddenly I hear a woman's voice from somewhere and I freeze up. Who's there? Lucia breaks away from my grip, probably feeling embarrassed after noticing the presence of a third person. After that, the group of people in strange outfits appear. There are all over 10 of them. Why did they even get here? Just how do I describe how they look? It's like a beekeeper's protective outfit plus some kind of spacesuit, then divided by 2. Oh, they're in like hazmat suits. Oh, right. We are fine, but this place is seriously deadly to other people. Without any of that protective equipment, they'd all be covering that purple marks from head to toe. Even though I understand that, I can't help but take a defensive stance against them. The mood feels like I've discovered a secret I shouldn't know, and now they can't let me live. Lucia calmly tells me to relax.
怯えるな味方だ
Okay. Allies.
怖がらないでそれより今はあなたの心配が先この敷地は生身の人間がうろつくにはちょっと適さない場所なのよ
The leader of the bunch is a woman. Well, not like I could tell which one's which with its getup. The voice, though, feels like I've heard it before. Yeah, I know. The female leader makes some kind of signal, and the other guys surround me. 2 of them start assembling some kind of basic stretcher.
歩けるかめまいは吐き気は何か自覚症状は
皮膚露出部に異常所見なし意識正常歩行可能カテゴリー3
What the heck? Don't touch me!
怯えるな天王寺彼らに任せろ
Trust them. Okay, sure. It doesn't feel like they're going to tie my hands behind my back or abduct me. They're treating me more like a patient in critical condition after having been exposed to the poison filling this place.
私たちが駆けつけるのが早くて幸運ねいえいえセキュリティがダウンしていた不運を呪う方が先かしらルチアちゃんの通報がなかったら大変なとこだったわよねそれがこの男私の毒に耐性を
奇跡的にも症状は軽微直ちに医療施設へ搬送します
うんそして天王寺くん後で病院で会いましょうね
I'm not liking this. Who the heck are you? That voice, it sounds familiar.
すぐわかるとにかく今は彼らに従い病院へ
Still completely in the dark, I let them carry me out. Ugh. They're treating me like some kind of biohazard, make me lie on a covered bed, they take me via car. Just who are these guys? Lucia seems to know who they are. They don't seem to be our enemies, at least. No, they probably are. They must be the ones running the orphanage. They probably give me a real earful later for climbing over that fence. Oh, wait a minute. I just realized orphanage. Biohazard. There wasn't a biohazard. The biohazard was Lucia. But an orphanage. What if they took orphan kids and experimented with them, awakening powers within them to recruit them into Guardian? Finding kids with no family attachments, and then indebting them, granting them power, but also like getting a chance to train them and condition them. That does sound like a program for making super soldier children. Oof. Guardian might be real sketchy. Like, not that Gaia is any better, but I'm not sure who. I feel like they both seem like they're just as evil as each other now. I had hoped the Guardian was just simply like people trying to defend the status quo and happen to have powers. But now it's looking more and more like it's not the case, that it's more of a experimentation type of situation. Boy, oh boy.
安心しろ何も恐れなくていいお前は死なないと約束しただろ
Yeah, but what's with these guys?
私の仲間だ後で説明する
The car is packed with some really expensive looking medical equipment, but it's definitely not an ambulance. And now that I think about it, these suspicious looking guys definitely don't look like emergency responders. Having discovered Lucia's secret, I initially planned on sharing that secret with someone who understands her, but it looks like it's just the tip of the iceberg. Lucia consistently stays near me and reassures me, which is great, but I still can't shake off my suspicions. Yeah, me neither, buddy. I'm not sure I like this. Okay. We're gonna wait here. This is a good place to end. Because it definitely, like, we've launched into a whole nother basket of worms, and that's not a saying. What am I talking about? We launched into a whole nother thing here. We're gonna stop. Because now we get to face Guardian itself. And I wonder if we're gonna be seeing a mirror of the Chihaya situation, where, like, Chihaya was part of Gaia, but it was more of an inherited thing. She had no real, like loyalty to the program. It's just what she'd always known. And we kind of deviate her, and we kind of became our own little thing, right? I wonder if we're going to do a very similar reflective aspect with Lucia, which is where, like, Lucia has no real ties to the system. It's just kind of what she's been, like, they were the people that gave her a chance, essentially. But, like, maybe she disagrees with, like, a lot of their methods. Hence, she can kill people, but they keep asking her to kill their enemies, and she just doesn't want to. So maybe we're going to do a very similar splinter group. And then we might see some mirrors. Suzaru seems to be fully on board with Guardian, and Akane, of course, is on board with Gaia. So I wonder if on their paths you get to see, like, the pro side of each of these organizations. Like, we first see the negatives and the anti-sides where we kind of try and be our own thing. And then we see the pro side where we kind of try and become part of their thing, but maybe not like the direction they take things. And then we have the grand finale ending to culminate all of it put together, which is going to be really exciting to see. But yeah, anyway, enough of that. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for being a part of the channel, being able to share this wonderful journey with me. The little shaky getting back into the swing of things after the insanity that was like the house situation with the power going out and like the really freakish like cold weather. But we're fine. We're moving on. That's not what this video is about. This video is about enjoying a good story and sharing it together. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, especially the patrons and members. You're amazing. I am so grateful for your faith in the channel, and I hope I live up to your expectations and make content that you feel is worth supporting. And regardless of whether you're a supporting member now or not, like, the fact that you're here watching means the world to me. You're all so awesome, and I look forward to reading each of your comments and just kind of being a part of all of this with you. So thank you so much. And until next video watching me, I've seen me next. I'll see you there.